and welcome back to literally my life, my guide to girlhood. I am so happy to be doing this episode because it is week 5, episode 5. I can't believe that I'm recording my 5th episode. 5 weeks ago, I kind of just sat down and was like, you know what, I'm going to start a podcast because I love podcasts. I love listening to podcasts, and I just love hearing different perspectives from different people and getting to learn different people and their brains and their opinions. And I thought, I have a big brain. I have a big opinion and a big mouth. So I thought this would be perfect for me. And I'm so, so happy to be doing this. So let's get started with today's topic, today's episode. So today's episode is going to be about something I think I want to be open about today. It's something very personal to me, and I think everybody can talk about it and relate to it in a way. Today we're going to be talking about heartache. Heartache. Like, not heartbreaks, not depression, not anxiety, heartache. Because I feel like that's so different than those three things. And I'm going to be talking about my heartache. I'm going to be talking about how I've learned to cope with heartache. I'm going to be talking about, how I think, my advice on how you should cope with heartache. We're just going to get into it. This is going to be a vulnerable episode, so grab your tea, grab your little blanket, get some tissues because you might cry, and, let's get into it. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the same broken record, the same story I tell. No. I'm going to start off with my experience. Heartache. Okay. So, I've obviously, was honest about this a couple of episodes ago, talking about my first real, love, my first real relationship, and then my first breakup. So one thing that I got from this breakup, this is how you know it was a real, something I really felt. So, one thing I got from this breakup was heartache. Something I never felt. Heartache that has lingered on for years and years. Heartache that is hard to deal with, Heartache that has severely impacted me and who I am as a person and how I deal with some things. And I'll give you guys an example. So my sophomore year of high school, I started a new school. I was going through this big breakup and I had started a new school. And, I could do a whole other episode on starting a new school, being the new girl. But that's not what this is about. What this is about was once I got to this new school, I obviously faced, trials and tribulations, your ups and downs, that comes with anything. And one of the things I dealt with was not necessarily pure conflict, but I would have days where I wouldn't get along with certain people or certain people would irritate me. And I caught myself having moments where it was God, I wish I could go home and tell my boyfriend about this. And then it was a moment of realization, oh, he's not my boyfriend anymore. And it sucked. It was so hard. My heart would literally break in half when I would say that. I would think to myself, I would be I really just want to talk to one person about this. I really just want to hug this one person. I'm going through a rough day. I'm having a rough day. I would have, let me give you an example. I would have days, I can't think of a specific day, but I would just have days, where I would fail a quiz or eat lunch alone, or get mad at somebody in history class, or just have days like that. And I would basically be in a bad mood. I'd have a rough day and I'd be I literally only want to be talking to one person about this. There's one person I want to talk to about this because this person understands me. This person knows how I deal with conflict. And it was great because I would love to talk to him about things in my life. I would literally tell this guy everything. He's my best friend. And the reason I did this was because I loved his response to things. Because we were almost polar opposites in the sense of I was, I'm more, I think I'm, I don't know how to say it now. I don't know how to explain it, but I think I'm just more soft on the inside. Like, I'm just more of a soft person, more tender. And I think he was more aggressive, like headstrong, deals with things the manly kind of way. And it was just so fun to hear his response to things. And then we would come up with a good solution, like a good compromise that's firm but also tender at the same time. And it would be great. And I would be like, wow, like, I'm so glad I got to talk to my best friend about this. But now he's not my boyfriend anymore. And he's not my best friend. And we didn't end on good terms. So it's not like I can still be like, hey, like, I know we're broken up, but can I talk to you about this? Because we didn't end on good terms. And that was, like, that itself was, like, it caused so much heartache. But then having these moments where I was really longing for him caused so much more heartache. Another good example of this would be like just missing his touch, missing his smell, missing him. There are nights in bed I have this pink teddy bear that I go to sleep with because if you know me, I'm like a stuffed animals person and I'm not ashamed of it. Like, I love my stuffed animals. But I have this pink teddy bear that says I love you. It's ironically not from him, but I would hug this teddy bear every night. And I would pretend it was him sometimes. Like, I'm not ashamed to admit that. Like, I know it's a little crazy, but I'm not ashamed to admit that. Like, I would hug this teddy bear every night, and sometimes I would just pretend it's him, or like, I would have to hug it to fall asleep because it was like the only way I could fall asleep. And I missed his hugs. Like, I still miss his hugs. Like, he gives such good hugs. Like, it's so weird to explain how somebody can be such a good hugger. I think there was like a scene of my best friend's wedding where the guy was telling Julia Roberts how like she just like she hugs me. Like, she doesn't just hug me, but she hugs me. Like, she gets to know me. And if you've seen that scene, then you get it. He hugged me. He didn't just like, it wasn't a church hug. It wasn't a little, oh, let's hug for a welcome, like a greeting. It was like a hug, a deep, beautiful hug. And we would embrace in each other, and it was so beautiful. And I would smell him, and it was great. Okay, and I miss those hugs. Okay, I'm not ashamed to be like, okay, I miss him, because I do. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're sitting here and you're having a heartache over an ex-boyfriend and you're like, well, I miss him, but I shouldn't miss him. There's nothing wrong with missing an old boyfriend, because you're human. You're going to miss the guy. Like, I still have moments where I'm like, man, I wish he was right here right now. Like, even though it's gotten a lot better over time, there still are days where I'm like, man, I wish I could tell him about this. Or like, I wish I could talk to him about this. Like, I'm going to college soon. I'm figuring out college. I'm, like scholarships and all this crazy stuff that I'm starting to apply to. And, I've talked about him being an athlete, and so that's something he doesn't really have to worry about because he gets scholarships for playing. But it would have been so nice to, like, talk to him about it, But, like, this is something we could navigate together. Like, let's go shopping for my dorm room. Like, help me, like, let's go visit campuses together. Like, let's do stuff like that. Like, that would have been so amazing. So, anyway, what I'm saying is, I think that there's nothing wrong with missing an ex-boyfriend. There's something wrong with going back to a person who does not see your worth. Now, I miss him. I will say that right here and now. I do have these moments where I miss him. I miss it. I'm not ashamed to say that. But am I going to go back to him after, I'm not going to go into details about the falling out or the breakup or anything. But am I going to go back to him after he did not realize my worth? After we broke up? After I said I was done with him? Am I going to double dip? No. No matter how much I loved this guy, no matter how much I wanted to be with him, am I going to double dip? No. I love this quote. I saw it on Pinterest. It was like, don't look back. You're not going that way. And that's so real. Like, I'm not even kidding you. Like, don't look back. Like, you're not going that way. Like, it's okay. And I'm going to say this. It's okay to have those reminiscent moments. It's okay. Like, don't feel bad for being human. You can miss a guy. I miss this guy so much. And this guy turned out to kind of be a piece of shit in the end. No matter how much I romanticize him on this podcast. This guy was, he was a piece of shit then. But I miss him. And I'm not mad at myself for missing him. I'm like, you know what? I'm human. He was my first real love. He was my first great romantic experience. I had so many great memories with this guy. Of course I'm going to miss those memories. But I'm not going to go back to him. And that's the difference. So when it comes to heartache, though, that I gained from this breakup, it was really hard to deal with that. It was pretty bad. Now, the reason I think this breakup was so hard for me was because this was somebody, because, you know, I was young, I was dumb. This was somebody I did see myself being with for a very long period of time. And I did see us lasting longer than it did. And I kind of started to make plans that centered around him. I started to make trips that centered around him. you know, just stuff like that. I started to make trips that centered around him. I started to, you know, get more involved with his career. I started to, you know, I didn't have an issue like we've talked about it in the previous podcast with putting him before me, but I did start to like prioritize him in my life, which I don't do unless I'm absolutely comfortable and safe with you. And that's what I did, and I let my guard down, and it was like the one time I let my guard down completely. I get so heartbroken. So this guy and I aren't together anymore, and I have had to deal with that heartache for the last 2 years. And it has been so incredibly challenging. It's a feeling that I just never felt before. There was, like, you can ask any of my close girlfriends, they're like, Alex was torn up after that. Alex was literally devastated after that little breakup. And so I had moments where I would get on the train after school and I would bury my face in a book and cry. There would be moments where I would get in the shower and cry. It would mostly be moments where I knew I was completely alone because I was putting on a front that I was kind of like over him and I was like doing my own thing and focusing on myself and my grades, and which I was, but I was not over him. I was just hiding the hurt deeper down, which I think created more heartache. So I was just absolutely kind of just broken inside in a sense, and I was hiding it for months. And I would take moments where I was completely alone and I didn't have to be vulnerable with people, and I didn't have to tell them, oh, I don't, you know, I'm not over him, or oh, I'm still having a hard time getting over him, because I didn't want to admit that to people because I was so embarrassed because of the way things ended. So I hid it. I hid it, and I regret doing that in a sense because it wasn't what I should have done. I think what you should do, in my opinion, this is my big sister advice, even if this guy, if you have, you know what I mean? Like, even if this guy was the worst guy ever, like, even if this guy shot you, but hopefully he did not shoot you, but you know what I mean? Like, this guy, like, shot you, or he really hurt you, and you're afraid or embarrassed to, like, tell your friends, like, you know, I do miss him. Like, I don't plan on going back with him, but I do miss him. Like, I miss his touch. I miss the way he was with, like, our cats. Like, that's, like, a random example, but I'm a cat person. But you know what I mean? I think that you should absolutely reach out for that help to a non-judgmental friend. Like, don't reach out to that friend that's going to be like, oh my god, like, he was a piece of shit. Like, don't you dare miss him. Like, blah. Because that's unrealistic. And then they were human beings. We're going to miss people. Reach out to that non-judgmental friend. Explain to them that you don't have intentions of going back with him, because that's not what we're doing. We're not getting back with him. We're just explaining our feelings of why we still miss him. But we're not going backwards. We don't double dip. And so I regret not doing that. I regret not reaching out to somebody and be like, hey, you know what? I'm still really, really hurt, and I don't know how to process this. I'm glad I've gotten the tools to be that vulnerable with people now and talk to them about things and explain to my friends that. And now I'm like in therapy, which we also talked about in the first episode. And I get to, you know, I learned how to process my feelings in a better and healthier way. But I just think hiding that heartache, I think it just made it worse. And I don't think it's something you should do. I think you should absolutely, like, hiding your feelings is never going to make them go away. I think you should absolutely address that feeling, that you're feeling, address the missing him, the longing for him, the crying in bed. I think you should absolutely address that with someone that you trust and that you know is not going to judge you, whether that's your friend, your parent, your cousin, your therapist, because I've talked to all of the above, and you learn how to process that. Don't hide the heartache. It's only going to make it worse. So here's the part where we're going to talk a little more about coping mechanisms and how to just deal with the heartache and the longing. And so I want to also make it very clear that the heartache doesn't have to be from a breakup. It could be from losing a friend. You know, it could be any kind of like losing anything. It could be from losing a friendship, losing a relationship, literally like losing something that you really liked. Not, you know what I mean? Like an object, like your old teddy bear. This heartache could be over not getting into your dream school. Like this could be disappointment in any forms that turns into heartache, right? Because that's where I think it really stems from, disappointment. For me, this heartache stemmed from my disappointment in my relationship. I was very confident in this relationship, and I ended up being very disappointed, and that disappointment stemmed into heartbreak. You know, heartache. Damn. But, you know, you get the cycle. So the thing I did was just kind of like indulge myself in things that I truly do enjoy. So one thing, I don't think a lot of people know this about me, but one thing I do really like to do is write poetry. I write actually really good poetry. My freshman year of high school, I went to school for creative writing. So I know my way how to write a little short story, a little creative nonfiction, a little, because there was Novel November. I've literally written a book. Not even kidding you. I've written a novel. It was an assignment. But you know what I mean? Like, I can write. I know my way around writing. And I've always really enjoyed writing poetry. I love writing poetry. So, I wrote poems. I wrote so many poems about this guy. I hand wrote them because to me, like, I feel like I can't get stuff out by typing it. Like, I have to be mad and listen to like angry Taylor Swift, like nasty picture to burn kind of music, and then write it all down in my poetry journal and write about how much of a scumbag you are. And I will actually, here, I'm going to read you guys one of my poems. Okay, this is a poem I wrote to the song Supercut by Lorde, which is like such a great damn song. Okay. Where does lost love go? When the spark disappears, where does it wander off to? Where does lost love go? Does it stay in our bodies? Does it suffocate our lungs until we cannot breathe? Does it travel around our heart, circulating in our blood? Does it cause our joints pain? Where does lost love go? Can I keep it in a jar like pixie dust? Open it when I want and bake it in my cookies? My thoughts will ponder and ponder as I wonder and wonder where lost love goes. You and I had the connection people pray for, the one that lasts a lifetime. Why suddenly does the love story not exist when it comes to mine? Where did our love go? Why did it have to fade? I look at our lost love and realize it's been thrown away. What happened to our spark? Okay, I wrote this one last summer to Bigger Than the Whole Sky by Taylor Swift, so it has like that kind of theme. Okay. I remember your presence in the sky because the possibilities in the sky are limitless. The sky is infinite. Yet, you were bigger than it. You were bigger than the whole sky. You are more cloudy than a Chicago day, but you bring more warmth than the Atlanta sun. You changed your mind more than an October day, and you could bring sunshine to rain. When the sky turns colors, I see you in them, especially in the color red. When the weather changes, I feel you in the temperature, especially in the sunshine. I remember your love in the sky, the way the sky reflects the weather's mood, the thunder, the passion in the rain. I know that's all you. I'm glad we live under the same sky. I'm glad we existed in the same lifetime. But I'll forever wish we were limitless, like the sky, yet you were bigger than it. Okay, last one. I don't know how I feel about this one. I wrote it last summer. I don't even know if I wrote this to a song. But I wrote, you've been appearing in my dreams again, and I don't know if I like it or not. I find comfort in you still. I pretend my teddy bear is you at night, and every single song takes me back to you. A small part of me wants to be back with you. A small part of me likes dreaming about you. A small part of me wants to love you again. but every other part of me knows you'll destroy me again. So I'll lurk in the shadows, cry in my room, and continue to write these poems about you. But the passionate part of me, the part of me you fall in love with, she still loves you. She'd run through fields of wildflowers to be with you. She'd stand up and speak now at your wedding. She learned every single football play. But even my passionate self knows better. So I'll continue to dream about you and let dreams stay dreams. I'm a dreamer. Okay, so that was an extremely vulnerable moment for me. I told you we were going to be vulnerable today. We're going to sit with each other. We're going to have an honest Oprah kind of conversation. And those are the few of literally hundreds of poems I've written about. You know, I'm not even going to lie, about a couple of guys, like not even just one. But those last 3 ones I read were about one. But I've written hundreds of poems about countless guys, about countless situations, about just, whatever's on my heart. If I'm like having an interesting day, or even I'll just have like, moments where like poetry will kind of come to me and I'll just write it down my notebook and just like the pen moves. Like it's not even me, it's the pen. It's something I love to do. Now, I'm glad I got to share my poetry with you guys, actually. That was really nice. But the point of that whole poetry moment, the little Shakespeare moment we just had, was for me to show you guys coping mechanisms. I don't have to text this guy and tell him how I feel because I can just write a really great poem about it. And these poems are lovely. And then when I mix these poems with like really good sad music, best combination. Because I compare my last relationship to the album Red by Taylor Swift. If you can't tell by now, I really love Taylor Swift. But Red by Taylor Swift describes this passionate, fiery, burning love. It was burning red because we had this passionate romance and then it just ended so suddenly. And she uses the song Red to describe all the metaphors that, like, it's a genius song. Some of the greatest writing I've ever heard. I admire Taylor Swift. Beyond being a singer, I admire her songwriting as a writer. Love her. But I always compare my last relationship to that Taylor Swift album because I had that passionate moment. I had that passionate love and then it just ended so suddenly. Like a little red moment. And I literally have a playlist. If you guys want it, I will literally link it. I might link it for you guys. Or it has to be requested, okay? But I have a playlist called Loving Him Was Red, and it has the Red, like some of the Red album songs that I think really fit with that description. Like, Come Back, Be Here, The Last Time, State of Grace acoustic version, like, those kind of songs. And then I have other songs on this playlist. Like I have here, I'll actually start reading some of these off for you guys. Let me find the playlist. I actually have it here. It's called Loving Him Was Red. And I have Better Off by Ariana Grande. I have I Almost Do by Taylor Swift. I have Writer and Liability by Lorde. I have Happier Than Ever by Billie Eilish. I have Cardigan. I have Till Forever Falls Apart. I have I Bet on Losing Dogs. July by Noah Cyrus. I have Complex Dimbo. I really love that song because it's like I'm wearing his boxers. Like, that song. I have a couple of songs by Drake. I think I have The Resistance, Look What You've Done, Doing It Wrong. I have So Sick by Neo because I was so sick of love songs. I have some Lana Del Rey, some Dealer, some How to Disappear, some Norman fucking Rockwell. So if you guys need that playlist, gladly. Anything I need to help you guys cope with not being with your ex or being with your friend or not getting in your dream school, I got you. But I think you should find something that you're really passionate about, something that you really, really like doing, and you use that as a coping mechanism. For me, it was writing poetry. I went from writing poems about like the sun, the stars, and the sky to like writing about my most intimate feelings to release them, to get them out. I have this podcast now and I talk about my feelings on this podcast and I get to interact with people who listen and like it and text me about it. And I promise you, for all the feedback I'm getting, it's starting to get to be a little much for my little personal account. So I will be either creating some kind of Instagram soon, or either I will just open up my private Instagram because that's where I get most of the DMs and make it public and make it like the podcast Instagram, or I will make a website. I'll probably do the first option. But we need to we're coming together, you and I, you who's listening, and we're finding you a coping mechanism. So you need to find something that you're really passionate about, something that speaks to you, whether, like, I have so many friends who like to paint, who like to draw, graphic design, sewing, cooking, baking, um, reading, writing, singing, like literally anything that helps you release this kind of emotion. And every time you feel that emotion, start painting. Every time you feel that emotion, every time you like want to text him, write a poem about it. Then sell those poems. I will read your poetry book, girl. I'm not ashamed to do it. I'm your friend. I'm here to help you. I'm your big sister. You know? So that's my biggest piece of advice, because it has helped me get over so many situations. And I'm not even talking about heartache from relationships. I'm talking about heartache in general. Just sadness that I've felt in life, dealing with certain situations, sadness from, things that I've gone through, even if it's been big or small, like getting sick and having my life changed completely, like, or mean girls, or breakups, or, fights with my parents, just anything I've dealt with. Poetry has, like, been my best friend, and I've written so many poems about so many things, and I'm going to start sharing these poems with you guys. Like, how about we start doing a poem an episode, because I have it written in my poetry journal. It says, a poem a day keeps the insanity away, and I have written so many poems in this journal. It's, like, insane. So, I think you guys need to find that coping mechanism, find that thing that makes you happy, and keeps your mind off of that breakup, off of that sad moment that you had, because it's over now. I mean, you can't look back. You're not going that way. We're not double dipping. And that applies to anything in life. Even, a relationship, or even, like, let's say you really wanted to go to, like, I don't know, NYU, and you got rejected. Don't look back on, like, oh man, I could have said this in my application, or I could have done this, or I could have gotten a higher SAT score. And I can't really talk because I do the same thing, but you can't look back and do the woulda, coulda, shoulda, because that will keep you in the same state of mind, in the same misery for months. Trust me. This is somebody who was stuck on a guy for years. Okay? The woulda, coulda, shouldas, no. What happened was meant to happen. If things were meant to be better, they would have been better. You have to trust that. You have to trust God's plan. Like, I'm not even going to be like, oh, the universe. It's what God wanted to happen. If he was better, if God, like, if that was what was meant for you, it would have happened. And I trust that every day. So that's what I leave you with today. We talked about heartache. We talked about my experience with heartache and how I coped with it and how I advise you to cope with it. But I also want to let you know that you're human. And it is so normal to experience heartache, and I'm not trying to force you to move on. Sit in that heartache, cry in that heartache, scream in that heartache, go out with friends in that heartache too, work out in that heartache, live through that heartache, because even though it feels like the end of the world, I promise you it's not. It just feels like it right now. And I still feel that heartache sometimes. I still, like I've honestly said, I still long for that ex sometimes. I still miss him. I'm like, hey, you know what? This crazy thing just happened to me today. Like, he's the one person I want to tell this to, and I can't. And that still stings. It still sucks. But I don't know if I've used this metaphor in the podcast before, but it's kind of like grief. It's kind of like grieving somebody, even though they're still there, but you can't be with them. And grief never goes away, and it never shrinks. You just learn to grow around it. And that's what I'm learning to do. And that's what I hope you learn to do. So I love you guys. Thank you guys for listening to me rant. Thank you guys for listening to the 5th episode of Literally My Life, My Guide to Girlhood. I love you guys, and I just want to thank you guys for listening, for supporting. I'm so blessed and highly favored, and I can't thank you guys enough. I love you all so much. Please give me, like, feedback. Please let me know your thoughts. Please respond to the Q&A. Just please let me know what you guys think. That's what I do this for. I want to hear you guys' thoughts. I want to hear responses. I want feedback. I want constructive criticism. I want it all. Tell me what you liked. Tell me what you didn't like. Tell me what you related to. Tell me what you didn't relate to. Tell me all of that, because I'm here to listen. I'm your big sister. I will personally, I've done really good with, like, personally responding to DMs and, like, all that good stuff. So I will personally listen to you. You always have a listening ear here. I love you guys. Continue to be wonderful, and I will see you guys next week.